Hello, I'm Debbie Buck with the City Hall Public Information Office, and with me today is Councilman Floyd Kloc. Councilman Kloc, you're one of the newer members on our City Council, and I was wondering if you could introduce yourself to the viewers of SGTV today.
Well, I'm a city resident for many years. I have a home in Saginaw where I've lived for 28 years, keep it straight here. I have an office. I'm an attorney. I have worked in the city of Saginaw for 30-some years. I started working in City Hall, actually, as the Chief Assistant City Attorney for 9 years. I left the city in 1988 with my own practice, and I've been practicing ever since on State Street near Bay Road. So I'm, I guess you'd say, quite a native of Saginaw.
Okay, so you have ties and connection and family with the city of Saginaw.
Very much so. My wife is a teacher in the Saginaw School District. This is her 40th year. I have 3 children, adults. Unfortunately, their careers have not led them to stay in Saginaw. I would wish it would, but that's something maybe I'll get into later. The ideas of what would keep them here is one of the things that we are missing, and I hope we can talk about that a little bit later.
Okay, and how has your perspective changed as a elected official? I know you mentioned that you were city attorney for a period of time. Has your perspective changed on issues of the day?
I'm not sure my perspective has changed so much as I understand a lot more. Having the perspective of having worked for the city started in 1979. That was the year the tax cap was imposed. Over the next several years of my employment by the city, what I essentially saw was the downsizing to close to where we are today. When I started, we had almost 1,000 employees. By the time I left in 1988, we were down to under 500 employees. And that was a direct result of the tax cap, having been imposed and having put restrictions on the ability of the city to function and to pay sufficient staff to keep the employment level at anywhere near what it had been.
Employment level and then service level also.
Service level is an understatement. What has been lost over the years, I'm sure the public is well aware of loss. Some of the most obvious are the parks and recreation. We don't have departments there anymore. We don't have forestry. People can see the trees that are now not managed like they should be in our city. The streets that don't get maintained like they used to. So yeah, I've seen that happen in a way that it doesn't. I don't like it. I think it should never have happened. It has, however, and that if you talk about that being a change of perspective, yes, my perspective has recognized the changes that have been necessary over those years. And when I joined the City Council, it was with the knowledge of that background and with the concern for the city that it has placed us in where we are today and the hopes that we can do better.
You mentioned hopes. What are your hopes for the city?
I would love to see Saginaw come back to anywhere near socially, culturally, historically what it was in the past. I don't think that's very realistic because of all the changes that have happened over the years. In other words, we'll never become the city we were, but we certainly can become a vibrant, strong city where people want to live and come back to. We still have one of the most economical communities to live in throughout the United States. We still have very wonderful cultural attractions. We have many beautiful homes, many beautiful buildings, a lot less now, no doubt about it. But there are things here that are attractive. We have good employers. Again, not as many, not as in-depth as we used to have, but perhaps you could even say more technologically advanced than we previously had. Most of it was manufacturing. Gave us a middle class. We have suffered greatly with the loss of the GM jobs, several thousand jobs over the years. And if you multiply that out at the rate of pay, even of an average of $50,000 per person, we have lost an awful lot of money out of the economy. It will take a long time to regrow any similar kind of economy. It took us 40 or 50 years to get where we are now. The city's been in decline for that long of a time. Even before the tax cap went into effect, we were losing some population. Before the tax cap went into effect, we were losing some services. The tax cap since has accelerated that, made it much worse. So we are where we are today, and in a way that will take many years to recover, tax cap or no. So we have to recognize that. We have to recognize it's taken that long to get where we are. You can't just snap your fingers and change it overnight. I am hoping my being involved with the City Council will allow me to help to contribute to start that change or to accelerate the change. It's already started. We have a tremendous development on Washington Avenue. The SSP company has done a fabulous job of investing in Saginaw. Other firms have as well. Jobs coming back to the city is what we need. Once we have a stronger employment base, other things, other attractions, other things that bring people back into the town will happen.
Councilman Kloc, I know that you're a strong advocate of buying local and that you have in fact been at the farmers market to meet with the general public. Can you tell me a little bit more about your thoughts on the local economy?
Well, yes, certainly you mentioned the farmers market. I think it's one of the biggest draws Saginaw has. The whole development of that, as I mentioned earlier, the Washington corridor, it ties right in. It's an attraction in that neighborhood. It's an attraction to the downtown area of Saginaw. Many people come in from all areas around, not just Saginaw residents. So it's actually one of those things that we could even consider a cultural draw almost. And there are many cultural draws, and having more of them is a benefit to the city. I'll get to that in a moment. But the idea of economic development, and I even want to mention one other thing. Saginaw is also a farming community in many respects. People don't realize it, but we're the center, or the hub, so to speak, of the entire Saginaw Valley. And the Saginaw Valley is one of the biggest agriculture communities in the world and has some of the best farming land. Well, there's a reason that we can utilize the farmers market to become a draw, and that's because people around us know that we are the center of a farming community. They know Saginaw Valley has a huge agricultural component, and people like locally grown foods and locally grown produce, locally grown flowers and different things that are brought to the farmers market. So it is a huge attraction. The idea of continuing the development on Washington Avenue is important. The whole idea of it, development can be looked at from some of the things the city is doing. One of them is neighborhood stabilization. We have developed a program where we go into neighborhoods, identify certain homes that are key to those neighborhoods, and revitalize them as opposed to tearing them down. I have always been an advocate of where we can refurbish something, we should do that rather than tear it down, because to me, tearing things down is a negative. You can't always avoid it. Sometimes it's the only recourse, but if you can do something to stabilize a neighborhood by not tearing it down, by improving it, and then revitalizing that neighborhood in the process, that is a huge plus. And we do have that program, and it is working. So I'm very, very happy with that. Other areas of economic development, well, I mentioned earlier about how my children are not in Saginaw.
Yes.
One of my oldest daughter is in cybersecurity. Well, when she went to college and moved on and got her degree, she didn't really see Saginaw as a hub where she could come back to for cybersecurity. The other thing she didn't see is some of the cultural attractions that the younger people like. She was into the Renaissance Center, for example. Well, and there's a lot of attractions down at Southern Michigan. I forget the name of the town right offhand. But those kinds of things are what the youth are looking for. They're looking for kinds of activities that are fun, that they can share with other people of their age. My youngest daughter she started here in contact juggling, developed an interest in college into fire spinning, and now she and her husband are performers. That's what they do for their entertainment as well as for their outside activities. She is an artist in fabric, but again, we don't seem to have those kinds of locally cultivated activities where our youth can go out and say, let's go out in the streets and do some buskering so that people will come and see us perform. In the larger cities, you have that, but we can develop some of those things. It will take time. I mentioned that earlier. It will take time. Saginaw can come back, and it will if we look to the future for those kinds of activities that we can draw people back with.
Councilman Kloc, would you share, please, with us some of your goals as a council member?
Well, one is to keep, the first probably has to be to keep a balanced budget. And that's because for two reasons. One, the charter requires it. But two, if we don't, we are facing what many of the bigger cities are in the state. Detroit, not exactly, but close. Several cities have faced the outside manager coming in, the emergency manager law given effect by the governor in particular cities. Well, that allows the emergency manager to basically destroy contracts, or change the entire makeup of the city operations. We want to keep our own autonomy. If we don't have a balanced budget, we cannot do that. So I see that as very important. The hard part that we have to recognize is doing that with our economic climate, with the downsizing of our manufacturing base has harmed us terribly when it comes to taxation. The loss of homes, the loss of population has hurt us badly. So we are essentially, and again, the tax cap, because the tax cap is in place, we are managing decline in the city. I don't like that. I think it's unfortunate. I do think that of many things, if we could remove the tax cap, it would not solve the problem overnight. I don't want anyone to take that away from this. That would not happen. But in the long run, it would contribute greatly to the ability of the city to revitalize itself. We would be able to spread the burden of taxation farther around on some of the businesses that are not seeing the weight of that tax because of the tax cap. So it would benefit everybody in the community if we could get rid of the tax cap. People don't, so far, we haven't had people, even those who recognize the need, aren't willing to go out and vote. Until that happens, we have the tax cap, we have to have a balanced budget, things will be declining. We will do the best we can to keep services available, the core services, police, fire, streets. We will keep those manageable and effective, but they continue to decline because of the tax cap and the inability to raise the funds to increase our budget as opposed to see it decreasing. So from a standpoint of a councilman, that's the very first thing that we all have to look at. We have to look at trying to come up with some way to have a police and fire service that remains effective while it's being downsized. That's another key component. Some of this may require outsourcing. Some of this may require consolidation. Some of this may require different ways to look at services. We aren't anywhere near figuring out the answers to those, but we are looking to those issues and trying to figure them out. And I think that's what we have to do as a council who is responsible to the public that it serves. Some of the long-term goals would be to, I mentioned earlier, Saginaw to come back a little bit, to have our city be the vibrant city that it once was. We've got good housing. Part of it is keeping that housing as long as we can until some of that development occurs. Attracting new businesses, new technologies to our city. Even the idea of the medicine. Medicine is one of the core businesses in our area, and we now have a developing medical college. There's a huge potential with the medical college to draw people back into our community. We need to be aware of that. We need to try and utilize that, and I think our council is doing that, and our management is doing that. I know there are always naysayers for management, for government, but without a strong management, without a strong council, you can't do those things. And I think back to the whole idea of why I ran, part of it was to try and make that contribution for a strong council. I had always been involved all my life in Saginaw in a volunteer way. I've been a member of Kiwanis for 30-plus years. I have been involved with the Historical Society for many years, the Saginaw Bay Symphony Orchestra for many years, and a number of organizations. I mentioned culture. Saginaw has huge cultural attractions. We have the Children's Zoo. We have the Children's Museum. We have the Historical Museum. We have an art museum. It's still here, and hopefully will continue. But the art museum is a wonderful attraction. And then we have the Choral Society. We have the Saginaw Bay Symphony Orchestra that I mentioned earlier. We have these attractions. They bring people in from multiple counties surrounding Saginaw. We need to continue to develop those cultural attractions so that people recognize that Saginaw has something to offer. And we need to, in fact, increase those cultural attractions for our youth. Our youth are looking for not just the traditional cultural attractions, but even more. So one of the things we need to do is continue to try and develop those kinds of cultural attractions so that our youth don't leave. If all the young kids that are graduating from college don't have jobs, don't see a happy livelihood in Saginaw, they will move. My own children are an example. I'd love to have them come back. But the kinds of things that they were attracted to are not here yet. So when I say not here yet, I mean we need to get them here.
Sounds like there's a lot more to do.
I think there is, and I'm glad to be here to be able to do it.
Well, Councilman Kloc, I would like to thank you for being with us today and sharing the reason why you ran for City Council and some of your hopes and goals for the City of Saginaw.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, Ms. Buck. Having the chance to speak to the public directly is a very important part of what we do as council people. I have, if anyone would like to contact me, I do have an email address. It's floydkloc@yahoo.com. Please feel free to contact me at that email, and I'll try to get back with you as soon as I can. I do run a business, my own practice, so it may not be right away, but I do respond. Thank you very much.